Wait, let me get back over.
You're on.
1 second.
Okay,
Just 1 minute. Let me fix something for her. All righty.
good morning. Did I say Sherry? Yes, there's Sherry. Yeah, good to see all of you. Before I start, I do have some private clients that I talk with on Wednesday, and I'm going to just tell you now, something came up Monday. I had an opportunity to speak in Alexandria, and we're leaving here as soon as we finish the Zoom, and we'll be back tomorrow. It is something that I had no idea that was going to happen, that it is like nothing short of a miracle. And so I just wanted to tell y'all, and then that way I won't have to call each one of you. And I so promise I'm going to get back. I'm not, I've missed one or two. So don't fire me unless you think you need to fire me. But anyway, I will be back. So just keep us in your prayers as Misty and I go. My son's flying us down there. He's going with us. And it is, anyway, it's going to be tonight. They're honoring all recovering people. They're bringing in recovering people from all over the state. So it's going to be it's going to be unusual. And I feel very honored to get to be asked to speak for a few minutes. So
that's okay. If you're not available, I'll always call Cam,
Sounds good to me.
All righty. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to move from broken to beautiful, and are broken and beautiful. People say it different ways, and there's my friend John right there and Allie. And so, so what we're going to talk about is trauma, and there's different forms of trauma. And this month is, and I can't remember the acronym, but it's this month is dedicated to people in the military that have been sexually assaulted in any way. Finally, it's gotten the attention of officials. And so this is the month of recognizing and honoring those that have had any form of sexual abuse in the military. And then next month is a month for anyone that has had any form of childhood abuse or sexual abuse in their adult life. Or anyway, that's for next month. And so I'm just glad that it's being talked about. When I went into the field, no one talked about abuse or trauma, or it wasn't, what I thought abuse is when someone took a child and maybe burned them on the hand or severely, and, denial is don't even know I'm lying. On a certain level, I knew that my dad had sexually abused me for the first 13 years of my life. That we departmentalized the trauma. We put it in a box, and there it is, and it was okay. And I, was going to move past it. Well, and then the field that I went into, not everyone, but a high percentage of people who have crossed my path, through either private counseling or through treatment, and that goes back to the treatment center where I worked previously. So it's over 42 years of seeing clients come and go. A high percentage of them have had some form of childhood abuse, some form of trauma, and a lot of them had sexual trauma. And I remember sitting in my office one day, a young woman came to there at the Serenity House, and she wanted to tell me about her sexual trauma. And I remember out of my mouth that I said, well, I don't know anything about that because I've never experienced it, although I knew that I've been sexually abused by my dad for 13 years. So, and then what I realized, I had gone to a conference, and I'm going to get into the material in just a minute. But anyway, I'd gone to a conference down at New Orleans. And it's really the first conference that I had attended. I mean, I attended hundreds of them. I was always searching for information and, ways to help clients. But it was the first one that I'd ever heard of on sexual trauma. Well, I suited up and showed up and literally suited up. Back in those days, we put on business suits and we wore pumps and we looked like business women, not the men, but they wore their suits, and we looked professional. So I went to that 3-day conference, and I'll tell you, they kept talking and they showed artwork and they went into detail about sexual abuse and how it affects children. And I hardly remember walking out of that conference. I left my luggage and I just knew I had to get out of there. And I caught a cab and I was going to the airport, but I didn't have my ticket. I didn't have nothing. And we crossed over that river, that big bridge. And what I wanted to do was open that car door and jump into that big raging river. That is what happens to people who have the head knowledge that I've been abused, but they have not worked through it. And so that began my journey of 12. It took me 12 years. Now, I didn't work on it every single solitary day. I didn't, but I'd already been to treatment for my eating disorder. I went to treatment, a 30-day treatment for trauma down in Florida. I went back there many times. I went to 6 days, 8 days, 5 days. I did something about every 3 months. I did every single solitary thing they told me to do. Not that I'm good and perfect, it's because I wanted to get well. And some of the things I didn't want to do. I had never had a massage because I couldn't allow people that close to me to touch my body because my body was so offensive to me. I knew it would be offensive to them. And that was one of the big recommendations, not only to get massages, but to get Rolfing. And so I did all of that. And little by slow, gradually, those layers began to peel off. And then I had the great pleasure of meeting Pia Melody, who wrote Facing Codependence. And I met her at a friend, she's not on here, but Dr. Ann Worth. I met her through Ann Worth. And Pia was the first one that in the addiction field that really started workshops on how to treat people with trauma, any form of sexual trauma. And you can talk about it. You can sit in a therapist's office 1 hour or 2 hours a week for 10 years. We have them come to us that have been seeing a therapist for years, and I am not putting therapists down unless they understand trauma and unless they have been trained in trauma. They don't know how to recognize it. They don't know the seriousness of it. So talk therapy is good for a while to get your story straight. You must get the story straight. You must tell your story and tell your story to someone that won't get up and leave the room. And I've had that happen because if therapists don't understand what things that happen to children, and particularly if they haven't addressed maybe some of their own childhood issues, they can't take yours. They cannot sit and listen to your trauma if they haven't addressed their own. So be very careful in selecting the people that you work with, that you want to, that's going to work with you. And don't hear me say that therapists are bad. They're not. They're wonderful. I mean, I wouldn't be in the field if they wasn't. But get someone that specializes in trauma, because you're going to get something entirely different than you're going to get from someone that hasn't had the additional training. So I had the privilege of training with and was in Pia's very first training, and that was 30 years ago in Dallas, Texas. And back then, it was a lot of money. I mean, it cost me about $20,000 going back and forth. We went every weekend for 12 weekends. Now she's got that condensed down to a 5-day I don't know how to do. But anyway, that's where I've learned to do a lot of what we do here. Now I've trained with other people, so it's a mixture. I've brought in a lot of different modalities. We don't do just one. Those of you who've been here, you know, we do different things with each one of you. And I never know what we're going to do. It is literally a God deal. It is not a Tennie deal. So I just wanted to kind of go into it with that about trauma. And when people come to me today, like that young woman did over 40 years ago, and talk to me about her sexual abuse, I don't have to tell them today, I don't know how to treat you. I don't know what you're talking about, because I know what they're talking about and I know how to treat them, and the other therapists do here. And I will say, if we get somebody that we can't work with, we will refer them out. I have referred people out. So with that disclaimer, I'm just want to get into trauma. And trauma is like a thief, and it loves to steal your joy. It gives you a sense of your worth, in which most people that have trauma, that sense of worth is not worthy. I mean, not worth much. You heard my friend, Dr. Ann Worth, on here that said she even changed her name in recovery, and her last name is Worth today. She legally changed her name through her work on her trauma. So a sense of your worth, it gives you, it tells you who you are. It gives you, trauma gives you a sense of safety. And your ability to trust. In other words, it tells you not to trust anyone. And so trauma steals a lot from us. And trauma comes in different forms. And don't discount yours. Your trauma doesn't have to be 12 or 13 years of being sexually abused by a father, or the big things. Yeah, those are big things. My mother was a drug addict and, prescription drug addict and alcoholic. Those are big things. Don't discount yours. Do not discount it. One day, a day in the life of a child is much different than a day in the life of an adult. One incident and a day in the life of a child, particularly if that child is sensitive, and most children are, you let them go to school, or you let them go to church, or you put them in care of people that are not trustworthy. That's how children get abused, because abusers come off as loving children. They know how to groom children. They are wonderful with children, and they build up the parents' trust. And one violation to a child can stick in their heart and then that brain forever. And then they build their life over that incident. And what they make up about themselves is they're bad, awful, and wrong. They may grow up, get educated, be successful, be married, but that abuse is still there. And on a certain level, it tells them every day, you're not worth much, So anyway, different forms of trauma, death, or the threat of death. When you lose a loved one, that's traumatic. Even when, some, like my husband was sick for 20 years with Alzheimer's, and he laid here in the house for 2 weeks while he was making his transition. We all knew he was going to die. And, you've heard me talk. For that day, I experienced trauma, and I got so angry at him. I just wanted to beat him up and God up and everything else, because, we were just getting to the point that we were going to both retire and travel and live happily ever after, And so that kind of death is, death is not easy for any of us, but I'm talking about unexpected death, or the threat of death. If you live where there's an abuser, and by the way, my father was a murderer, and I lived with that fear every day. And what he would tell us, you can't trust anyone outside this house. Well, I grew up and I knew as a child he was lying. Children know. And I think God has his hand on children. And I knew, I mean, I took myself to church at age 8, and I knew my father was lying to me. I knew it was safer out there on the streets by myself than inside that house. But, you know, you can't run away from home at age 8, 9, or 10 or whatever. But the threat of death can be traumatizing. You know, when someone threatens you, you know, domestic violence. I mean, whether they carry it out or not, but that threat, if you leave me, I'm going to blah, blah, blah. So the threat of death or death is very traumatizing. And then any form of the second one is any form of childhood abuse. You know, we say the 5 forms of childhood abuse as sexual, mentally, sexual abuse, mental emotional abuse, educational, intellectual abuse, spiritual abuse, and I can't think of the 5th one, but y'all, I mean, I'll get, but you know, y'all have all heard them. Anyway, anytime a child is harmed in any way, mentally, physically, spiritually, that's abuse. So, and number 3 is neglect or abandonment. Children can live in $1 million homes and be neglected. And, you know, a lot of clients that we have, some of them come from very affluent families. They come from very successful families. Maybe both parents have, you know, outstanding careers. And the children are raised by nannies or chauffeurs, or, I mean, we've had many clients like that. And these are the ones, you know, you think of neglect or abandonment, and there's plenty of these around, you know, that are not taken care of, you know, given their basic needs like housing, food, you know, education. That's, you know, we all think of that as neglect and abandonment. And children can experience neglect and abandonment when they are raised by people that what we call have the back walking away, you know, where they are out making a living, they're work addicts, they are into their career, they'll be gone, you know, many hours of the day, and someone else is raising the children. And what those folks do, children that are raised like that, when they start picking a mate, we go to what's familiar, and they will go toward people who are not available. They will choose people who on a certain, and they don't know this. We don't know that when we're doing it. I swore I would never marry an alcoholic or become one. Well, I became one and I married 2. So we don't keep our word to ourselves, you know. And so, because we can't a lot of times. So that feeling of abandonment, you know, like I said, when you grow up in that, you go toward what's familiar. And so you find people who cannot be there for you emotionally, sometimes physically, spiritually, because we think that we are getting what we deserve on a certain level. And imago therapy, I want to put that in for y'all who are married. And if you're in recovery or not in recovery, but if you are having any form of problem with your marriage, I would recommend imago therapy. And it is, Dr. Harville Hendricks wrote the book, Getting the Love You Want. He was a minister, he was a psychologist, he still is. I'm acting like he's dead. I think he's on his 4th wife. He was the marrying kind. He could marry, but he couldn't stay married. And that's when he knew that he had a problem. It wasn't those women, it was he didn't know how to treat a woman. And he kept picking someone like his mother, and he kept getting someone that was like his mother, and, you know, and she abandoned him and all that sort of thing. So I was listening. I see my friend Nikki Magdalene. I see her here from Alexandria. We'll be seeing you in just a little while. And I was listening to your sweet husband. I heard you talk first while I was getting dressed. You were 40. That was a few days ago. and you were addressing a young married ministers and their wives. And what you said was wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And what I heard you say is that your husband was your biggest supporter and that he allowed you to be you. And that not only that, but he drew a lot from you. And then Anthony got up, and Brother Anthony, excuse me, got up and preached and was talking to those young ministers. And he said, if you can't get it right in your marriage and in that house, you're not going to get it right in the pulpit. It starts at home, folks, regardless of what our vocation is or what, but particularly for people in the helping profession. You know, when we hire therapists, you know, and in today's time, you have to be very careful the questions you ask because of their civil rights and all of that. And I agree with all of that. But I don't want to know so much about their credentials. What I want to know is about, first of all, their love of God. Do they believe in God? If they don't, they cannot work in a facility like this. They can't. Because they can, but they'll break down and wind up in treatment, which we've had a lot of them to do that, and that's okay, that's good. But a lot of times we pay a lot of money to send them to treatment. But anyway, I won't get into all that. But what I want to know about people who work here, and we're not looking for perfection. I want to know, how do they live at home? What is their home life like? And you can just ask a few simple questions and get that. And I'm pretty bold, y'all who know me, you know. And we also treat all addictions here, and we don't allow people to work here who smoke. And I did that 34 years ago and was criticized forever about it. And now most facilities, I don't know about addiction facilities, I think most of them still allow smoking. We've never allowed smoking. You know, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. But I had this therapist to come and interview with me one day. And boy, his credentials looked good. He interviewed well. Our clinical director was really impressed with him. And I said, okay, well, and he was from a university that's a church related university. And I said, okay, well, do you have any addictions? Oh, no, ma'am. Oh, ma'am. Oh, ma'am. I said, do you smoke? I said, do you smoke? And I'm so bold. And I said, well, why are your teeth yellow? And he broke down and he said, yes, I smoke. But I haven't since yesterday because I knew I was coming for this appointment. And I said, and I don't know where I get this stuff. It just comes to my mouth. And I said, what are you doing about your porn addiction? And I thought he was going to fall down on the floor and faint. And he said, well, I'm going to a group. And I said, that's good. That's good. Because, you know, we really like wounded people here. If people wasn't wounded, I mean, if people who work here wasn't wounded, no one, I mean, if we just hired all perfect people, there wouldn't be anybody working here. Every one of us have had wounds. It's not about being wounded. It's about doing the work to heal around it. So anyway, we hired him, gave him 30 days. Turned out to be one of the best employees we ever had. But had I not asked those questions, he would have been so guilty that every time I saw him, he would, you know, hang his head or whatever. But we got it all out and open. And I gave him 30 days and I said, if you smoke and I can smell it because I'm allergic to smoke, you will leave the premises that day. And he was a great employee, great employee. So fourth thing then is sexual violence. Like what I said a while ago, is that sexual violence, it doesn't all, you know, what I said, like this month is honoring the military that have been sexually violated. And that violation comes in a lot of different ways. You know, and when you're on the job and you're working for your country or any job, and you are approached by a superior that or anyone that does any kind of sexual harm to you, what it does, it can cause, in all of these forms of abuse, trauma can form PTSD. Okay, so when you have been through this type of abuse, it can create anxiety, panic, depression, and can show up in the most overwhelming, distressing, and debilitating ways when you least suspect it. Trauma just shows up. You cannot put it in a box. For instance, maybe you're sitting at a recital for your children and a song is played that triggers your brain. Maybe that was the song that was on the radio when you were being abused by your father. The people around you don't know what's going on in your head, but you can have a complete meltdown and get into even a panic attack because those memories rush back in a second. And it can be overwhelming, distressing, and debilitating. And what it results in is fatigue. People get tired when you carry around this unresolved conflict. It wears you out, fatigue. And it brings on that feeling of hopelessness. Nothing's going to work. Just no hope. And then along with that helplessness, not knowing what to do about the abuse. That's one of the reasons I want to talk about this. And I had no intention of doing the trauma talk until I really got into it. But anyway, all right. Okay, I don't know that we talk about it enough because everyone I believe, has suffered from some form of trauma. And most people can work through it. But when it's severe and it lingers in your brain for years and years and years, it must be given appropriate attention. Okay, so like I said, it brings on that feeling of helplessness and overdeveloped fear, and can turn into anxiety. So being in recovery from trauma means being perfectly imperfect. You've heard this before, perfectly imperfect. We are perfectly imperfect children of God. We are children of God. And then I know when we say this, when I do speak at conferences or something, I've had people come up to me and say, well, you talk about God. Why does God allow innocent children, to be abused? Why didn't he stop it? And what I tell them is God gives people a free will. He has given the abusers a free will. And what he says, if you want to run your life into the ground, you can do it, or you can let me run your life. And you won't have the consequences. But when we're running the show ourselves, we suffer the consequences thereof. I don't believe God plays any part of trauma. I don't. Now, this is my belief. I do not think God plays a part of trauma. He didn't cause it. I don't think he's sitting up there handpicking the people that are going to be. I don't believe that. But I do believe that through him and good therapy, people can get well from it. But it is a spiritual problem. Therapy alone, I believe it, or I wouldn't be in the business. But we can take people so far. This is a God deal. This is between them and the God of their understanding, this trauma. So God can heal anything, but we've got to be willing to surrender it to him. Okay, so there is one of the things about being perfectly imperfect. We're going to have pain with the trauma, and it's going to increase when you start working on it. I promise you. It's going to hit you right in the face when you least suspect it. And be willing to go through the pain. If you don't get willing to go through the pain, you're not going to get to the other side of it. You can't go over it, around it, under it. There are some good meds out there if people get suicidal, and this is where you've got to work with good health professionals where they know how far to take you and when to stop. and maybe you need a break in the work. Maybe you need to have some form of medication. I don't know. I'm not that kind of health professional, but we have a psychiatrist, we have doctors, and that's what we recommend to people. Have your whole team to work with you with the trauma, but allow yourself to feel the pain, because if you don't feel the pain, what you're going to do, if you have a brain of an addict, when that pain comes up, you're going to go reach out for a drink or a drug, or you're going to overeat, or you're going to starve yourself, or you're going to go have sex with someone. A high percentage of people that have been sexually abused have problems in the sex area, and a lot of them, either on one side or the other, will do anything to ease the pain of living, to stop that pain immediately. And so then many addicts wind up with two problems. They have the problem of the addiction, which if that isn't addressed, and that isn't, we don't get stable, and whether it's an eating disorder, drugs, alcohol, or whatever, if we don't get healthy there, you're not going to live long enough to treat the trauma. Now, you might live a long time, but you're going to live a miserable life in addiction. So you got to treat the addiction first, and then the trauma. In Alcoholics Anonymous, and in my training, and I've heard this, you don't take an addict in early recovery toward the trauma. Now, on an outpatient basis, I'm absolutely for that, 100%. Let them get their eyes open. Let them get some good stability, get into their meetings, get a sponsor, get sober. Your eating disorder people, get sober around the food, around your acting out, whether you're starving or overeating, because until you do, you can't do that hard underlining work of trauma. You can't do it. It's impossible. And what it'll do, it will make the addiction worse and worse. So, but I will say, I kind of talk out of both sides of my mouth. On an outpatient basis, give them 2 years before you start working on the trauma. And then if because of the trauma, you get to relapsing, what that shows is you need inpatient treatment. Whether somebody recommends it, recommend it to yourself. If you can't stay in recovery from whatever addiction you have long enough to work on the trauma, you need inpatient treatment. And and I'm not the only one that would say that. Any therapist anywhere would tell you that. So I don't know how I got off on all that, but anyway, I do believe in good treatment, good therapy. Some people can do it on an outpatient basis, but most addicts can't. Most addicts can't, because they can't stay sober long enough to treat any form of abuse. And so I was going to say something else. When we get addicts in here, which that's what we treat, when we get alcoholics, drug addicts, eating disorder people, and they do have trauma. So that's when I break my word. If they were on an outpatient basis, I would say give them 2 years. If not, if they're in treatment, that trauma needs to be addressed. You must address the trauma while they're in treatment. They may not, they're going to touch on it. They may not do all of it. But this is why when we recommend people to stay 90 days, 6 months, a year, across the board in the United States for anorexics, your treatment centers most of them recommend a year, for any form of severity of addiction. Do we get that? No. And when we recommend long-term treatment to people, and it's usually people who have trauma and who have not been able to stay successful in staying sober. So when we recommend it, we get things like, oh, you just need our money. Sure, that's the only reason we're in the business. Or, they'll say very derogatory things, and we just listen, let it go in one ear and out the other, because what they're dealing with is fear. They're so scared to go there and touch that trauma, that core pain. That's really what we treat here, is the core pain. You get them sober, you get them clean from their addiction, And within a week to 10 days, I'll tell you what, you know what to work on, because that pain comes up so bad, it chokes them to death. If they don't work on it, they will leave and go use. And so anyway, so pain, you can't go around it, you must work through it. So, and I am so glad Mickey is on here, because I've tried to listen to your talk on this Japanese art form, but it never would come up for me. And I don't know how to pronounce this Japanese art form, but I'm sure in a minute you'll be able to pronounce it for me. But y'all have heard of it, this Japanese art form that was started in 1500. And it was about where they had a broken vessel, a piece of pottery, and how they would mend it with gold. And when they got through, it was stronger and had more value than it ever had, through its brokenness. Now, you've got to be very careful. I mean, that's an art in itself. What they use to glue those pieces back together. It has to be just right. It can, you can't just put any kind of glue in there, it has to be just right. That's the same about working with on trauma. You have to be very careful who you choose to work with you, because, like I said earlier, pick someone that they don't all have to have had trauma themselves, but it sure works if they know what you're dealing with. But pick someone that is trained to do the trauma, or you'll leave there, I think, worse than when you went in. Because what some therapists, and I'm not complaining about therapists, but therapists, if they haven't done their own work, it scares them to work with people with trauma. And so they will, shortchange them. They'll just do a little bit of work. And in this treatment center, it's small. We keep it small because of the type of work that we do. And we've hired people here that when you get on this campus, if you haven't addressed your own issues, they will come up. Many, many, many years ago, I had a wonderful young woman that cooked for us. She was great. Wasn't Misty, this way before her time. But she was wonderful. She was wonderful. And I knew there was something. I knew she was shy. She just had some characteristics, some personality characteristics that sort of bothered me. But boy, she was a worker and she was a good cook. And then that was when I used to do trauma weekends, 3-day weekends. And she had a house full of kids and needed the money. So she offered to, or wanted to work and cook for those, that trauma weekend. It was a 3-day. And it was addressing nothing but trauma. And it was usually clients that had been through, they would come back and do a piece of work. And in her, she was around it and she listened to them at mealtime and she knew what was going on. So I came in on Monday morning, or I hadn't got to work yet. It's when I worked all the time. The receptionist called me and she said, Mrs. McCarty, and she told me the woman's name. She said, she is really sick. And so I went over there and she said, she's just over in the corner. I went over there. And when people who have had severe trauma, when it hits them, a lot of times what they'll do is they will literally roll up into a ball. And she was in the corner of the foyer in a ball. A ball. And she was in regression. She was back into the time that she was being abused. And when that happens, you best be trained to work with them. And what we do is we just go right in there with them. I got down there on the floor with her and I was right there with her to help her go through that. Because if you don't, when they come out of that, they're going to have more shame than they had before they went in. And so when people are around this kind of work, you can't work here without your own issues coming up. And then you can't stay here personally without doing the work around it, So, and I like that about us. There'll be times that I had brought them over in the group room and worked with them individually, or we'll send them somewhere else. It's not appropriate to put an employee here through our program if they are going to, work later. I've have given them a leave of absence for a year, had them go through the program, take a year off and come back, or we've referred them to other treatment centers. But I'm saying this, be careful if you haven't addressed your own trauma and you know that it's there, if you put yourself in a situation like that young woman, she had soaked up all about what we were doing, and she could hear through the walls the screaming of the clients and all, and bingo, all of her issues came up. I will tell you, she's in good recovery today, very good recovery, but she had to work hard for it. Okay, so like this pottery, you have to be very careful about what you use. When you start putting those pieces back together, I was gluing something together the other day. It didn't amount to a hill of beans. Probably I could have gone and bought the same thing. I was trying to remember this morning, what was I gluing? See, it wasn't important enough. I can't even remember, but I spent about 2 hours trying to glue that thing back together. And then it became like a contest for me. It wasn't going to get the best of me. But what I saw is, because I get impatient. I don't have I have more patience than I used to. But what I needed to do was either put a clamp on it or hold it still until it glued. Because I would get it in there and I'd think, okay, I've held it long enough. And I'd walk off. Well, that sucker would slip and it would get out of that little crack. So in putting anything together, like, a broken vessel, each piece has to be put back exactly and then glued the right way with the right thing. And that's how trauma work is. You got to work with each piece of the trauma. And you don't want to disown yourself, because you are yourself. And if you want to try to I wanted to get red, cut out, do something with that trauma that I had. I was ashamed of it. And that's what children do. They pick up the shame of the perpetrator and they carry the shame of the abuser. And I was so embarrassed. I wouldn't tell anybody about it. Didn't tell my husband. I didn't tell my children. And it finally came out, and a little bit, but I told very little. We spent a year in family therapy, and a little bit of it came out, but not much, because I had so much shame about it. So we are all of our pieces, even the flawed pieces. We're flawed people. So when you start doing trauma work, you can't pick and choose what you want to work on. You keep working on the trauma. When the pain comes up, you work on it. You do a piece of work. Now, I'm not saying live your life in a treatment center. Some people, if they don't stay long enough to really do the work, it will come back and it'll come back and it'll come back. So what I tell people when they leave here is if the pain comes back, come back and do a 4-day. Come back and I'll spend a day with you. Kim and I will work with you, just ourselves. Or we'll find you a therapist in your area. Keep working on the trauma until you get all of those broken pieces examined and looked at. You've got to look at all of the broken pieces. You don't throw them away, because if you throw them away, you're not going to have anything to glue back together. So you have to look at all of those pieces. And you can tell I've got a lot of energy around this, because I'm just keeping on and on and on. So I'm going to give you some how to really do, if you want to change, if you want to get better from any form of trauma. First off, you've got to admit that you have had the trauma. You've got to admit it. Now, you can walk around and say, I'm an incest survivor. Yes, you have survived. You're not there in it right now. You've survived. Like the big book talks about the people on the Mayflower. When they got to shore, I mean, they were thrilled and they were sad. They had every kind of feeling in the world, but they were survivors. They survived the Titanic. I mean, that was huge. They survived. Now, the pain was over. I mean, yeah, they would have trauma from it, I'm sure, later on. But basically, they picked up and went on with their own lives. Where alcoholics, drug addicts, people with eating disorders, people with sexual abuse, all that, we don't get over it. And that's why we have to all stay grouped up together in groups like 12-step groups, AA, NA, OA, Sex Addiction Anonymous, Eating Disorder Anonymous, OA. We must get with like kind, because if you don't, when you talk to people who don't understand the trauma that you've had or the eating disorder or the whatever, they can listen, but they can't understand on a heart gut level. And while I'm saying that, I'm going to tell you something, and I know I'm taking up all the time, but after all, this is my show, I guess I can't. Anyway, I want to tell you something about this woman, Mickey Magna. And I hope you don't mind. Anyway, I'm going to do it anyway. She has a nephew that was had addiction problems, and she went to AA meetings with him, and she had got a real burden for addicts, alcoholics, and drug addicts, and any addiction. I don't care what it is, any addiction. And when I met Mickey, I got to thinking, how many people, non-addicts, helped form Alcoholics Anonymous? I mean, if it hadn't been for the non-addicts, AA would never have come about. Because addicts, we want it our way. We get to fussing and fighting, and we get this, we get that, and we're arrogant, and we're self-centered. And so it was the non-addicts that brought so much to the table that helped form Alcoholics Anonymous. And they didn't have any addiction, but they had a love for addicts. And they could show that. And it wasn't in a caretaking, here, let me take care of you sort of way. It was, how can I bring my knowledge to you to help further the movement of Alcoholics Anonymous? And I want to say this because when I went down to Alexandria the first time, I went to see, like I said, Sister Mickey had a nephew. She went that's an addict. She went to AA meetings. She got a burden for addicts. And we can have a thought, we can have a feeling, and we can feel sorry for people. Bless their hearts. I hate for them to, have that problem. And we can do that all the time. But Mickey had the feelings, but she also she wanted to make a difference. She wanted to help bring about a change in her community and in her church with addicts of all sorts. And I don't know the story exactly. I'm probably, I don't know, but what I've heard is that her husband got up to preach a sermon one Sunday morning, and Mickey interrupted him and went up and wanted to talk about the problem of drugs and alcohol in their church. I'm saying all this to say, with Mickey and so many addicts in that area, they have come together, people in Alcoholics Anonymous. They have formed what they call a group, seven, SEVEN, 7 group. And the first time I went, I am a pure big book 12-stepper. I don't want anything fooled with there. And I went in with some judgment, and I was really not, and I've told y'all, I'm for anything that'll help an addict. I am not for Celebrate Recovery, and I'm not going to go into all the reasons I'm not. But I will tell you this, people do not make money off the program, any program. If you make money off the program, I don't want to have anything to do with you. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. I don't believe in Celebrate Recovery. So I went in with a judgment about the 7 program. But I listened, and I came back, and I prayed about it and prayed about it and prayed about it. And I went back, and I called what I call the 7 fever. I mean, I caught it. I love that program. If you ever have a chance, if you're close to Alexandria, Louisiana, call, find out when the meetings are, go to those meetings. They are full. They come out of AA. This does not take the place of Alcoholics Anonymous at all. It adds to. They have meetings there, but they also bring in the love of God in Jesus Christ. And I don't know, I can't say enough good stuff for it. And so I had what the big book calls contempts without investigation. But what I did is I investigated that program, and there's a movement. And if it comes close to your area, I would encourage you to go check it out, because they are doing some work that I don't think AA can ever touch, because AA, a lot of times, people, particularly people in church, have a bad attitude about AA. Some of them, because they think, oh, they just are still drinking up there, or they just go up there to drink. I've heard this from church people. Or they just all get up there and smoke and cuss. Yeah, some of them do, but I'll tell you, still Alcoholics Anonymous, any 12-step program, there is more healing there than there is anywhere in any modality. So 7 uses the 12 steps across the board. They have not doctored them. They have not changed them. Oh, thank you. And they're doing beautiful work. And so I just had to say that. And I'm going to hurry and give you some ways to recover. But if you're ever in the area, and I keep hoping and praying that my daughter Kim will help start, and her friend is a non-alcoholic, Misty, will start a 7 group here in Abilene, Texas. It's really needed, because this is a town with a church on every corner. I mean, there's churches everywhere. And I've been to most of them. We're not, out here in the desert without any word of God. It's everywhere. But when I go to these big social things, and I try to go without condemnation and judgment, but I go to these big social fundraisers, and you know what they are? They're drink fest. People get there, and all those people I've seen at those churches, every denomination, I don't care what it is, except the Pentecostal. I've not seen anyone there. I will say that. But they get there in these huge fundraisers, and they all have their evening clothes on. They're gorgeous, beautiful, kind of quiet. They start drinking that wine, and they have fine wine, and then they want them to leave lots of contributions there, and they'll have the hard stuff. By the end of the night, I sit there and watch them. Usually me and Missy are the only 2 sober ones there. There may be others, but I sit there and watch these church people dancing on the table, dancing with each other's husbands, leaving out the back door with somebody else. I don't know. Anyway, I'll stop that. I'm being very critical. So what I'm saying is, just because you live in a community where everybody loves God and the word is available, it doesn't mean that they are really absorbing the word and enough to stay sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. So I want to let it go at that. All right, one of the things, I want to give you a few things to do about how to recover is making the impossible possible. And how you do that is you have got to release the investment that you have in living a broken life. I wore as a shield, well, after all, my mother was an alcoholic. I can't do this because my dad was so-and-so. Well, my mother, I wore that as a badge to keep from doing anything in my life, So we have got to release all of those things that we are investing in that's keeping us sick. We've got to invest in being willing to give them up. So anyway, I'm kind of lost. So many of us have been used and abused, and yes, we need to absolutely, find that inner child on the inside of that child, that the one that, was abused. That's the one that's still holding the pain. We must do all of the work around it. But at some point, when people stay in it so long, they take on like a badge of honor that they're damaged goods. I did. I've already told you, we think we're damaged goods and not worthy of love and recognition, and right now it's hard for me to tell you this, but I've been honored a lot in this community. And in the early days in the alcoholism field, down at the state level, I had a lot of honors. And it's even hard right now for me to say. I mean, I've been honored and recognized for success, for some success that I've had. But it never went in, because my thought was always, and it's better. My thought was, oh my God, if they only knew who I really was, if they really only knew, well, today, who I am. I am a child of God. I'm perfectly imperfect. I've made mistakes, but I'm not a mistake. And, and I am worthy of love. And you are worthy of love and recognition and success. So we've got to get past our being so wounded and so sick that we're not worthy of getting well, and see really and focus on what's possible instead of the impossible. When I look back from where I came from, there is no way in the world I could be where I am today without the help of God. But I had to do the seeking. I had, and I'm not bragging on myself, well, I guess I am, but I had to get sick enough, I would have done anything for help. I've driven from here all the way to El Paso to hear one speaker, 35 years ago. I couldn't get anybody to go with me. And by that time, I was still driving. My kids won't let me drive now, but I got in the car and drove myself there. You know why? Because I was searching. I wanted some help. And I cannot get over people when they don't want help, but that's another thing. All right. So there's a famous poet, Rumney, R-U-M-I, I speak West Texan and I just ruin the English language. But anyway, he gave us a lot of wisdom out of this poem. He said, the wound is the place where the light enters you. Rather than our wound being one of destruction. Our wound doesn't have to be destructive. It doesn't have to kill us. It can be the entry into the light. But if we don't go into the light and into those cracks and really see what's back there, we're not going to get well. We're not. We've got to look at the bad, awful, wrong, all of that. The moment we realize that we're worthy of help, the reconstruction begins. And we cross a threshold. And from being, we usually, in our adult life, yes, maybe we've been abused as a child. I don't know about you, but then I became my own abuser. I abused myself when I grew up. I abused myself by negative self-talk. I abused myself by nearly eating myself to death, up to 287 pounds. And so, we've got to start into some reconstruction work and have, the impossible can be possible. And it's about transforming what is broken into what is beautiful. The beauty was always there. It's still there. It's not gone away. You have not lost the beauty. You have not. It is not gone. You've got to peel off the layers and layers and layers to find it. Another thing is, like on that base, they had to really prepare that base and the materials that they were going to use or it wouldn't work. And this is what we call, so they'd use the gold. And so the gold in the analogy is our desire to be healed. We must set ourselves up for success and to be, and not to have unfulfilled expectations. We can get our feathers ruffled with unrealistic, unfulfilled expectations. Our husbands don't treat us right. Our kids don't honor us. That therapist doesn't know how to help me, all of that stuff. And if we want to be successful, we have got to quietly move toward being healed. Quietly move toward, don't ever stop moving forward. And what it does, if we don't, do our own healing, what it does, we set ourselves up to judge ourselves, get down on ourselves. We must have patience with the journey. It takes a long time, sometimes, to heal trauma. And you just got to be willing to heal it and to do what someone recommends. And like I said earlier, you can be sitting like it's springtime and we haven't started mowing out here yet because our weather's still bad. But when we start mowing, when I smell that grass, new mown grass, it brings me right back into my father's bedroom. And I have to catch myself and think, and then I say, in the grass beautiful. I'm not there. I am not being abused. That was then. And I have to embrace that child in me and bless her heart, bless her heart. But I don't have to bless my adult heart. I have to get up off my rear end and go to work and do the hard work. No one's going to do it for us. And we have to have patience with ourselves and our healing. Okay, and so I want to tell you one more thing. Re-experience each broken piece. It's the type of work we do here. And I say we're not the only ones who do this. If you know other treatment centers, I know of one down at New Orleans that has done some of the work that we do, and I know a couple of treatment centers, but by and large, they don't do the trauma work that we do. And that's why we keep it small, because it's hard work on the therapist. It's hard work on the clients. These clients get here and they work hard. I'm seeing my friend Herbie here on the screen. He's the same age as I am. We are both 39 years old. But it was such a blessing for me at 79 to sit next to a 79-year-old man and get to do some work with him. And for him to be willing. See, this is the thing. We get thinking, well, we're too old. I don't have many days left. Well, live the days you have left free, and so we're never too old, we're never too young, we're never too anything to get help, but we must go back and re-experience, like that young woman did in the foyer when she rolled up in a ball. She was re-experiencing that abuse I'm grateful that I'd had the training to know what she was in, and where otherwise they would have called the psych hospital. They would have picked her up in that ball. She could not have gotten out of it. They wanted to straighten her out and strap her to a gurney, and they would have taken her to the psych hospital and would have kept her about 7 days and medicated her out, and would start testing her to see what was wrong with her, why she was drawn up in a ball. That's what trauma does, the reenacting in the body. And so the work here, we have a process. We take clients into the trauma, and I go right there with them and our other therapists. And I've never failed to see them come out of it. And therapists that can't do this type of work, they're scared of it. And I will say, well, how can you do that? I don't. God does. I'm just the messenger. I'm not the message. But what I see when they can go in all the way and get into that core pain and come back out, and you may have to do it many, many times until that ball is completely lanced. But that's where the kind of work that we do. So be careful with the kind of work that you're doing. And there's different kinds. It's not, and we incorporate, it's anything that you can involve all the senses, artwork, movement therapy. anything except just sitting and talking about it. Some talk therapy is good, but writing, pen to paper is the best, two of the best tools. Write. Then show it to your therapist. Draw. When those memories come up, draw everything out. Keep you some crayons because if you were abused as a child, let the child do the drawing and it'll be entirely different. It will be entirely different if you let the inner child do the drawing instead of getting up and the adult's going to make a picture. Put that crayon in your left hand or your non-dominant hand and then close your eyes and let the inner child do the drawing. That's when you'll learn about yourself. So anyway, I just want to I do want to leave you with some hope. There is hope for healing. And I just want to say this, brokenness leads to breakthrough with every breakdown. And that's any kind of breakdown. Any kind of breakdown, with every breakdown, there is a promise for a breakthrough. I've never learned anything on the mountaintop. I learn in the ditches. And when I get in the ditch, I think, and I don't as often. I haven't been in a ditch. I don't know, probably will be this afternoon since I'm saying I haven't been, but I don't, because I have a daily reprieve, a program that all of you use to keep me out of the ditch. So I'm going to tell you, when you have a breakthrough, when you do the kind of work that we've been talking about, what we do is we relook at the parts and get our story straight. So we look back, we call it relooking. I don't know if that is appropriate. I don't care, but we relook the past. And then we refill the experience. You can tell when clients are into it because those feelings, they cannot control them. So refill. And then release the pain and the fear and the guilt through some form of experiential type of therapy. And when you do that, you're going to feel renewed. You're going to feel renewed, from that piece of work. And then what happens is you're going to feel in recovery. In the group, you're going to feel, and I've looked at all of y'all that have had this type of experience, and it's like, it is a spiritual experience. And we see your eyes look better, your heads are up, your shoulders are up. God has entered that room. And you recover. And then what we say is go celebrate that piece of work, go celebrate and participate in your reconstruction. And then when the pain comes back up, go do it again. It doesn't mean it didn't work the first time. It means this is more pain and more pain and more pain. But after a while, if you keep working on it, I remember I woke up one morning and I knew I was done. I knew I was finished. I was done. I can tell. I'll tell you how you know when you've completed your trauma work is when you can tell your story like you're talking about news, weather, and sports. When you can tell your story without a lot of the emotions. Now, sometimes you might get into a little emotion, but by and large, when you can tell your story from the adult, because recovery is about, we've got to grow ourselves up, folks. We've got to be the adults because those adults that abused us were not. So we have to grow ourselves up and, celebrate what you're doing, recover. So remember that pain is our best teacher and best motivation. If you, as addicts, when you have pain, if you will stay with the pain and work through it, you call your sponsor, you get to a meeting, and I will tell you, Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12-step program, they are not designed to do this, to work on this sort of thing, but they will hear you, they will listen to you, and a good sponsor will say, call your therapist, or they may get with your family and say they need treatment. but they won't try to be your therapist. If you have a counselor, a sponsor that's trying to be your therapist, even if they're qualified, get out of that deal, because they're doing that for them and not themselves. A sponsor is just that, a sponsor, one suffering person to another one, and so pain, remember that pain is our best teacher and our best motivator, and pain always leaves a gift. There's always a gift. Behind every adversity we live is a lesson and a blessing. I want to say this one last thing. I love what Bill W. said. He said, life is our classroom. And if he was here today, he would be in the Adult Children of Alcoholics movement. He had so much abuse from his mother, but by the grace of God, that relationship was healed before she died. In fact, she even went to work for him in the AA, in his office through the AA. But anyway, Bill would say life is a classroom, and don't forget to show up for school today. Don't skip school. That's your classroom. This morning, and we get a group morning meditation every morning, and what it was talking about is our woundedness. I thought it was, it's a God deal. He was talking about our wounds and our brokenness, and that's. But what we must have along the way is some fun. You got to take a break from all of the hard work of trauma and have some fun. Find you a group of people that you can get with. I call it a safety net. We don't have to have a huge group, 3 to 5 people in our safety net that knows everything about you and loves you anyway. Call those people. Go to the park and swing. Go skip, rope. Go do something fun. Get out and do fun. Be hilarious. Laugh. Misty and I, we have our Tuesdays. We go out every Tuesdays to run errands. And every Tuesday, we have people come up and say, y'all are having too much fun. What is so funny? But we find things to be funny. We laugh about the silliest things. And I'm going to tell you all of them because, I just do silly things that I wouldn't do with anyone but her. I'll put on this great big, on the outside, this great big old busted bra thing, and just hold it up. And we just laugh. I would not do that with anybody else but her, but laughter is healing. So I know I've taken up all the time, but I want to hear from any of you. If y'all want to stay, if any of you have a comment or a question, will you share? Hope you've gotten something out of this. Mickey, are you going to share? That would be me.
Jackie has her hand up too.
Oh,
Jackie.
Jackie. Okay, and then we'll come back to Mickey. Jackie.
I just wanted to say one thing that really resonated with me that you had mentioned is the having God help you along with the recovery. My grand sponsor said in a Monday night meeting I was at that no matter what she put in her, she couldn't fill the God-sized hole that she had. She had to turn to her higher power, and whether it's food, alcohol, sex, whatever your addiction is, you can't fill the hole in your soul or your heart. You have to look to your higher power. And in my case, I call him God, to help do that. And when I tried to fix it on my own without God's help, it was a big mess. And I had to have help, and I didn't know just how powerful he can be until I accepted I wasn't in control, and I let go and let God take control. And it really changed my life. And that's all I wanted to share. Thank you, Tennie.
Oh, thank you, Jackie. Mickey, did you get it turned on?
Katie S.
Is it now?
There she is. There she
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
I just want to thank you, Tennie. I don't get to join on every Wednesday because of this particular certain time. We're usually doing something in the church every Wednesday, but I do get to listen posting. So I just really appreciate what you said today. My dad said something as we were growing up. He said, yes, you will hear that knowledge is power, and you do have an incredible amount of knowledge, Tennie. But he said, knowledge is power, but you have to live to get smart. And it's true. It's really true that your life is such an example of healing and hope. And if you had not been broken in so many areas, what good could that do for? I'd love to know the statistics of broken people, those that we know of and those that we will never know of. So thank you for your open life, your open book. Thank you for, yes, having the knowledge and having the place where that there is a source of healing. But thank you for just being smart.
Thank you, Nikki. It is so amazing that I walked in a while ago and I was thinking about the topic for next week or week after next, because next week we're doing an intensive. And I told Misty, I said, I don't know, I kind of know what I want to say, but I don't know how to title it. And what did I say? You don't know what you know.
Yeah.
It was about you don't know what you know until you know.
Well, you said, I don't know if you ever did even say King Suji, but you did. But that story is just absolutely beautiful because it's a Japanese word that's made of 2 syllables, king, which is golden, and Suji, which is repair. So it's golden repair. And that's what this whole podcast or this whole Zoom meeting was about. It was golden repair. And thank you.
And that's the reason I forgot, but that's the reason I called on you so you could pronounce it for us. Thank you.
I don't even know that that's correct.
It is. I had it written down. Thank you. Katie. Katie S. Katie? Is Katie? Oh, there you are.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you so much. I'm sitting in my car. We're having a huge rainstorm here, so I just decided.
Oh, I wish we had it.
Hey, thank you. I don't get to get in here very much, but of course, every time I do, it's exactly where I am. And coming out to Shades and doing my intensive and getting the information that Tennie gave us was life-changing for me. I'd struggled with my anorexia and exercise bulimia for, I think, a decade before I got sober. And I was sober for, I think, 7 or 8 months, and I was sicker than I'd ever been. And I couldn't understand it because I was doing everything that everybody who came in and got sober with me did. So when I got there, it was delivered in a very short, sweet, and to the point delivery of, you better go at this the way that you go at anything else that has to do with your 12 steps. And if you think that your diseases aren't sitting there waiting to take you down and that they don't care which one does, you're going to have a hard time about it. And I didn't like what I heard, but I knew by like day 3, there was something to this. And I'd never worked with people who, just like you perfectly described, you got in those trenches with me. And when I felt like it was too big and my whole body shut down, I was able to look up and I saw Tennie sitting there right there with me. And I already heard her story. And there's something to be said for being in a room with someone else who will not ask you to do what they haven't already done. And I hadn't experienced that before. Starting at such a young age, I got a whole lot of, you better go do this. You better go get better. So So to have somebody who not only showed me that they would get down in there, but helped me know that I was safe. I didn't know a safe place could exist. I didn't grow up in a home that like there was violence or any of things like that. But until I really learned and experienced safety of it's okay, we're here. There's nothing that you're going to say that is going to make us turn around or walk away or say, I don't know what to tell you or any of that. And now whenever I even talk about Shades of Hope to anybody, and I talk about it to anybody who will listen to me when they say, what did you do? You know, we've seen you a long time. What'd you do? And the first thing I say is, I stopped running away, because that's my default. When it hurts too much and it's too big, I'm out of here. And Tennie and some of her counterparts and other people showed me that if I just touch it with my finger and I trust and I believe and I trust the process, and I swore if I ever heard that ever again, I was going to implode and lose it. And now I say it to everybody, and and as the words are coming out of my mouth, I start giggling. My life is so beautifully imperfect today, and I have hope, and I know to my toes that my pain has a purpose and my story has a purpose. And Tennie's the first person that said that. And I know it's true now, and I get to share it with other women. And every time I do, my heart heals a little bit. And I didn't know that that was the point, that, we're alcoholics. They got to trick us into doing service work. They got to tell us you got to give it away. And little did I know that anytime I share my story with another woman, or even men too, I'm talking to a lot more men about my eating disorder now. People have all kinds of questions. And when I let them know that, yeah, it's really hard, but I can trust that these people are safe and that they are telling me the truth and that they're not asking me to do anything they haven't done. It changed everything. So I adore you, Tennie. I adore Shades of Hope and everything you all do. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Katie. I've loved watching your journey. I've loved it. Thank you. All righty.
Megan Strader.
Megan. All righty. I was wondering when you were going to push your button. Hi, Megan.
Hi. I'll keep it short. So last night I'm in the middle of a flare up with my EDS, and I've been in a lot of pain for the last couple of days. And so I've been trying to do more meditation. And when you are talking about feeling our pain, and I think that applies to emotional and physical. And so this meditation I did last night talked about letting it disperse through your body, which was such a foreign concept to me that I hold it in the areas that I have the most pain. It's like I'm holding on to it and trying to protect it because I don't want to feel bad anywhere else. But the concept was to just let the pain disperse and go where it needs to go. And it was amazing how much it lessened my pain and how much it freed the rest of my body and how the rest of me kind of got on board with the healing. And so it was kind of a breakthrough moment for me physically, but also thinking about how that plays into recovery too. Like I always say to Bodhi, there's a lot more space out here than there is on the inside. And so last night, just that really stuck with me. So I just wanted to share that. And I love you.
I love you. Well, while you were talking, I have shoulder problems. And so while you were talking, I just took a breath and my shoulders feel better.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Just let it go.
Thank you. All righty. Y'all have a great 2 weeks. Next week, like I said, we will be doing an intensive, but we'll be back the following week. And my private clients, please forgive me, and that I'll be back. You know who you are. If you need me, I'll have my phone with me. Call me on my phone and we'll talk. So Mickey, we will see you tonight. Oh, all righty. Y'all have a great week. Love all of you.
Bye. Safe travels.
Thank you.